Ever feel like things get a little out of control when it comes to dealing with suppliers?
Oh, yeah, I know that feeling.
Invoices all over the place, and deadlines always seem to be right around the corner. Plus, I always have this feeling like I could be saving a lot more money if things were just a little bit more organized. So today we're diving deep into a concept that can really help with all of this, and it can help you become the conductor of your own supply chain. It's called the Maestro de Proveedores.
I think it's fascinating how many businesses don't really have a good system for their supplier information, and they end up missing out on a lot of potential savings. It's almost like trying to build a house without having a blueprint. You might get something that stands up, but it's not going to be very efficient or very stable.
Okay, that's a great analogy.
Yeah.
So let's break down this Maestro de Proveedores thing. What does it actually mean?
Well, in simple terms, it just means master of suppliers. It's all about taking control of all the information you need about each and every supplier that you work with. Think of it as a central hub for absolutely everything you need to know about those companies that keep your business running.
So it's like having a control panel for all of your suppliers instead of digging through files or emails all the time.
Exactly. And it's not just about finding contact information quickly. A really well-structured Maestro de Proveedores goes much deeper than that. It includes things like general data, like addresses and contact info. It also has company-specific details, like what their production capacity is or what certifications they have. And maybe the most important part is the purchasing data, things like the contract terms, payment history, really all the fine details that end up impacting your bottom line.
I can definitely see how having all that information organized in one place would be useful. But what are the real risks if I don't manage this information properly?
Well, the consequences can be much bigger than you might think. It can affect your efficiency, but also your financial health and even your company's reputation.
Wow, okay.
We could be talking about serious financial losses, operational problems, and even legal trouble. And it all comes down to something as simple as not having a good grasp of your supplier data.
You said legal headaches. Just from not being organized with my suppliers? That seems a little extreme, doesn't it?
It might seem surprising at first, but just think about it for a second. What if you have contracts with unclear terms? Or what if you miss payment deadlines? Or even worse, what if you're relying on suppliers who aren't complying with regulations? These might seem like small oversights, but they can actually turn into major problems that cost you time and money and even damage your brand.
Okay, I see what you mean. So let's imagine a worst-case scenario. What would a real supplier management nightmare look like?
Let's say you're about to launch a big new product. You've invested a ton of money in it, and then at the last minute, your key material supplier calls and tells you they can't deliver on time. It turns out there was a misunderstanding in the contract, and you didn't catch it because the contract was buried somewhere in your email inbox.
Ouch, that would be a disaster. So production gets delayed, you miss deadlines, and you've got some seriously unhappy customers. What else could go wrong at that point?
Well, now you're scrambling to find a new supplier so you can get back on track.
Yeah.
But you don't have a good system for tracking payment terms. You miss a deadline with the new supplier, and you end up with late fees and a strained relationship.
Oof, so now I'm behind schedule and losing money, and I have to deal with unhappy suppliers on top of it.
And to make matters even worse, imagine you're doing a routine audit, and you discover that one of your longtime suppliers has been flagged for some pretty unethical labor practices. You didn't know about it before because you weren't really monitoring their compliance. And now you've got a PR crisis on your hands.
Okay, that is a nightmare scenario. I'm convinced that managing supplier information is incredibly important, but where do I even start? Am I going to need color-coded spreadsheets and a giant filing cabinet?
It doesn't have to be that complicated. The key is to understand what information is really important and then find a system that works for you. Maybe it's a simple spreadsheet, or maybe it's some dedicated software, or maybe it's a combination of both.
Okay, that makes me feel a little better. But before we talk about solutions, I want to dig deeper into the specific financial risks of not managing suppliers effectively.
That's a great idea. Let's do that next.
Okay, so let's talk about the financial risks. Can you really lose a lot of money if you don't have a good Maestro de Proveedores?
Oh, absolutely.
Tell me more.
Let's start with something super basic. Late payments. If you don't have a good system for tracking when your payments are due and what the terms are, well, it's easy to miss a deadline or two.
Right.
And that leads to all sorts of problems like late fees, penalties, and it can even hurt your credit rating.
Yeah, missing a payment here and there might not seem like a big deal, but over time, those fees really start to add up, especially if you're working with a lot of different suppliers.
Exactly.
So late payments are one thing. What else should I be worried about?
Well, another common problem is duplicate payments. If your records aren't organized, it's super easy to accidentally pay the same invoice twice,
Oh, I can see that happening.
especially if you're still using paper invoices or if you have multiple people handling payment.
Yeah, you're juggling a million things and an invoice gets lost in the shuffle, and suddenly you've paid for the same thing twice. Not a good feeling.
Not at all.
So we've talked about late payments and duplicate payments. Are there any other financial risks that maybe aren't so obvious?
Definitely. Think about early payment discounts.
Oh, right.
A lot of suppliers will give you a discount if you pay your invoices early. But if you don't have a good system for tracking those discounts and when they expire, you could miss out on a lot of savings.
It's like leaving free money on the table just because you weren't organized enough. And I guess that also ties into negotiating with your suppliers.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't know how much you're spending and what your contract terms are, you're not going to be in a very good position to negotiate a better deal.
That's a really good point. A well-maintained Maestro de Proveedores gives you all the information you need to negotiate more effectively. You'll know exactly how much you're spending with each supplier, what kind of volume discounts you might be eligible for, and you'll know if there's any room to renegotiate the payment terms.
So it all comes back to having a clear and organized system for your suppliers, right?
Right.
It's not just about avoiding mistakes. It's about making smarter decisions and improving your bottom line.
Exactly.
And it's not even just about direct financial losses.
Right.
Think about all the time you waste searching for contract details or trying to reconcile invoices.
That's time that you could be spending on growing your business.
Very true.
L.
I'm sold. Having a Maestro de Proveedores is clearly a good idea. But I still feel a little overwhelmed about how to actually create and manage one.
I get it. It can seem daunting, but it doesn't have to be. There are tools and strategies that can make this process a lot easier, even for busy entrepreneurs who are already juggling a million things.
Okay, I'm all ears. What are these magical tools and strategies? So let's talk about these tools and strategies. Give me your best tips for getting this whole supplier management thing under control.
Well, the first thing to remember is that you don't have to do everything at once.
Okay.
You don't need to go out and buy some fancy software right away.
That's good to hear.
Even a simple spreadsheet can be really helpful if you use it the right way.
So I can start small and just get organized with what I already have.
Exactly. Just start by gathering all the basic information for each of your suppliers.
Okay.
Things like their contact details, their contract terms, their payment history, anything that you think might be important later on.
So just compile all the data. What's next?
Once you've got all that basic information organized, you can start thinking about how to streamline some of your processes. For example, are you still dealing with paper invoices?
Oh yeah, a lot of them.
Maybe it's time to switch to electronic invoicing and set up some automated payment reminders.
Less paper, less clutter, less chance of things getting lost.
Exactly.
What about tech tools? Are there any specific apps or programs you'd recommend?
There are tons of options out there.
Oh boy.
You can find free or low-cost spreadsheet templates online, or you can look into more specialized software that's designed specifically for supplier management.
Okay.
Some accounting software packages even have built-in features for tracking supplier information.
That's good to know. I don't think I'm ready for a full-blown enterprise system yet, but maybe there's an app or something that can help me get a little more organized without spending a fortune.
I'm sure you can find something that fits your needs. And don't forget about communication.
Oh, we're going.
Clear communication with your suppliers is so important.
Yeah, makes sense.
Make sure you understand their preferred ways of communicating and set clear expectations for things like invoicing, payment, and delivery.
So it's not just about data management. It's about building relationships too.
It is. Good communication is essential for any relationship.
Sure.
And remember, communication is a two-way street.
Right.
You need to be transparent with your suppliers about your own business needs. Let them know about any changes that might affect your relationship.
Oh, good point. I get so focused on my own to-do list that I sometimes forget to keep my suppliers in the loop.
I know, it's easy to do.
Any other words of wisdom before we wrap things up?
Don't be afraid to ask for help if you need it.
Okay.
There are lots of resources available. You can find online guides, or you can even talk to a consultant who specializes in supplier management.
Yeah, I guess it never hurts to get a little expert advice.
And remember, even small improvements can make a big difference.
I like that.
You don't have to overhaul your entire system overnight.
Baby steps.
Exactly.
This has been really helpful. I came into this feeling totally overwhelmed by my suppliers, but now I actually feel like I can take control and start making some positive changes.
That's great to hear. Remember, mastering your suppliers isn't about becoming a spreadsheet wizard or micromanaging every little detail. It's about having a system that gives you clarity, control, and the confidence to focus on the most important parts of your business.
So it's about gathering information, streamlining processes, using technology wisely, and building strong relationships.
You got it.
This has been another fantastic deep dive. Until next time, keep learning, keep exploring, and keep mastering those suppliers.